I'm Kyung from the Center for Sustainable Healthcare Education at the Faculty of Medicine, University of Oslo. In this video, I will first explain what is meant by a corpus and introduce you to the Oslo Medical Corpus, the specialized corpus I mentioned in the last video, which is designed to support research-led educational programs in modern medicine and global health. First, let's think of some initial research questions that can be answered using a corpus. What is the most frequently used expression in the WHO's annual reports? Is the word illness used differently in documents published by UNAIDS and documents published by the WHO? How and to what extent has the WHO's use of the concept sustainability changed over the last 10 years? What kinds of metaphor are used in relation to dementia in Wellcome Trust reports, and to what extent do they differ from the metaphors used by patients in the studies we discussed in the last video? These research questions can only be addressed by consulting a very large corpus of texts in which the discourses of organizations such as the WHO and UNAIDS are well represented. Identifying repeated patterns or regularities, or simply frequencies across numerous texts and millions of words is very difficult to do manually, and it requires considerable time. This is one of the reasons the corpus analysis methodology can be very helpful. A corpus, then, is a large collection of authentic texts collected and stored in a machine-readable form so that it can be processed by purpose-built software. My collection of electronically stored WHO annual reports, for example, is a corpus. One of the aims of any study based on corpus analysis is to investigate real-life language use and especially to identify repeated patterns in the use of any linguistic item. For example, corpus linguists have found that the phrasal verb set in tends to be strongly associated with negative words like rot, decay, and despair, while the verb happen is connected to unpleasant things like accidents. These are patterns we are not normally aware of as we use language, but which do communicate specific meanings subliminally. We can see a similar pattern with the word cause as both a noun and a verb in the Oslo Medical Corpus. Like the verb happen, cause is frequently associated with phenomena or events that are negative. For example, the common expression cause for concern has an exclusively negative meaning and is used repeatedly by different health organizations, as in HIV trends for children and adults are cause for concern. This particular example comes from the 2012 UNAIDS report on the global AIDS epidemic. The verb cause is also often associated with negative phenomena, as in the germs that cause illness adapt and change over time. This example comes from a 2019 Wellcome Trust report titled Reframing Resistance: How to Communicate About Antimicrobial Resistance Effectively. However, bring about, a quasi-synonym of cause that means make something happen, is associated strongly with positive phenomena, unlike cause, at least in the health-related texts included in the Oslo Medical Corpus, as in bring about extra benefits such as declines in STDs in a UNAIDS report on the global HIV/AIDS epidemic, bring about far-reaching changes and improvements, and bring about socially and environmentally sustainable development in UN's report of the World Commission on Environment and Development. Large-scale corpus analysis can also give us insight into the way change occurs over time. A diachronic study of the language of chiropractic treatment in 1950 and then between 2005 and 2008, for instance, shows changes that reflect a particular pattern of evolution in the biomedical and health sciences in general, such as increased attention to evidence-based and patient-centered care, and a shift from much greater prevalence of masculine pronouns in the early period to more frequent use of feminine pronouns and gender-neutral terms of reference in contemporary texts. Now, let me introduce you the Oslo Medical Corpus, which is compiled by the Center for Sustainable Healthcare Education at the Faculty of Medicine, University of Oslo. The Oslo Medical Corpus, OMC, is a large suite of electronic corpora of medical and medical-related texts, accompanied by an open-access software interface and visualization tools to support research in the fields of healthcare and medical humanities. John Sinclair, who pioneered the work in corpus linguistics, insisted that a corpus is not just any collection of texts held electronically, however large. For a corpus to be useful to students and researchers, it has to be designed according to parameters that are relevant to their particular area of interest and has to record the provenance of each text. Following Sinclair's advice, texts are not included randomly in the Oslo Medical Corpus. First, they have to relate to healthcare directly or indirectly. Second, priority is given to texts that deal with particular topics that are of special interest to students and staff working for or with the Center for Sustainable Healthcare Education, for example, texts on pandemics and epidemics and texts on sustainability and the Sustainable Development Agenda. Third, special effort is made to include the discourses of leading healthcare organizations and journals such as the WHO, Wellcome Trust, and The Lancet, but also the discourse of grassroots organizations and individuals who are critical of mainstream discourses on health. And finally, the provenance of each text is carefully documented and made readily accessible to the user so that when you identify an interesting instance of language use in the corpus, you can immediately establish where it comes from, including when it was written and who authored it. Here is an example of how this works in practice. The main software interface allows you to enter a search word such as control in the box at the top marked keyword. Let's say our search word is control, perhaps because we want to examine questions such as who typically controls what in healthcare in general, or in the context of particular topics such as HIV, or because we want to go on to do a similar search for eliminate or eradicate to get some insight into the difference between control, eliminate, and eradicate in discourses on health or on HIV, for example. In this snapshot, from the output of the search control plus of, we can see two typical patterns that the software reveals to us at the click of a button. The first is control of antibiotics and antimicrobial resistance, and the second, stronger pattern, is control of communicable diseases. In the next video, my colleague at the Center for Sustainable Healthcare Education will discuss further examples to show how the Oslo Medical Corpus can help us address various research questions by demonstrating some of the software tools, including visualization tools that accompany the corpus and facilitate various types of searches and analysis.